Okay, guys, welcome back to Rotten Reviews. On this episode, I have a treat for you. I have the 2007 film The Invasion. It has a 19% on the tomato meter and a 40% on the audience score. I say it's a treat because it's kind of a blast from the past for me. I remember as a kid seeing the movie that this one was based upon, the movie that this one ripped off shamelessly from, and that would be the 1978 film Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That one was far superior. As you can see, it has a 93% certified fresh and an 81% on the audience score. Yeah, it was quite a creepy movie back in the day in '78. I was a kid. My parents took me to see it, and I'm glad they did, but I was pretty damn scared as a little kid, and I recall the adults in the audience were also pretty creeped out. That one was with Donald Sutherland, and he played a health inspector that kind of uncovered the alien conspiracy that people were being replaced with some kind of, I don't know, alien intelligence. And there was an effect they used in which you would fall asleep as a victim of this alien spore, and this kind of webbing would appear over your body, and it would transform you into an alien version or an alien copy of yourself, and then your original copy would kind of deflate away into an empty husk. This movie, this 2007 ripoff of that film, well, it kind of does a very similar thing. It has a similar effect where, you know, once you're infected by this alien spore, you kind of fall asleep at some point, and then your body develops like this kind of gross mucus webbing type stuff. But in this case, it doesn't make a copy of you. It actually just transforms your body, reprograms the cells into an alien version. It's kind of a little bit more far-fetched than this 1978 version. Not better or worse, really, just a little more far-fetched. And it's this this 2007 version of that film is not nearly as suspenseful or effective right off the bat because everybody knows what this is about. Basically, everybody's already seen either the 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers or the original version from back in the '50s. Either way, it's not like this is some secret that audience goers in 2007 wouldn't know what the plot of this was. So you would have to, if you were making this successful, you would have to add a new twist to it, something that we didn't anticipate in the audience. But no, it didn't. It just kind of ripped off elements of the 1978 film. And then, you know, it's starring Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig. They didn't do bad in their roles, but there just wasn't a whole lot original that they had to do. They weren't special, they weren't bad, they were just okay, I guess. And Nicole Kidman, well, she doesn't really make for an action star, but it has her running around a lot. Daniel Craig, back in 2007, of course, he wasn't James Bond back then, he wasn't known as an action star, and his accent is a little different. Now, I don't know if this Daniel Craig in 2007, in this film, I don't know if this version of him is his authentic real-life accent, or this is another accent he's putting on, because he sounds completely different than he does in the James Bond movies. They are both British accents of some type, but as you would probably guess, there's not just one type of British accent, so he's got quite a different one in this, and I can't really say if it's his actual accent or not. That's the trick to the actors, right? If they do their jobs well, you don't really know what they're sounding like in the real world. You shouldn't, at least. But in any case, let's get right into the audience reviews on this. I'm going to read just 3-star and below because I think we'll learn more from those rather than just, you know, kind of unrealistic 4 and 5-star reviews. Let's start with one from about 2 months ago, September 17, 2019. 2 stars. Blondes do not save the theater this time, unfortunately. I think they're referring to Nicole Kidman. She's nothing special in this. She could have been replaced by anybody else, so I don't see her as a positive or a negative. This film had a lot of flaws, making it rotten. I certainly agree that it's rotten, but it's not because Nicole Kidman did something wrong. It's simply for more script reasons, actually, than anything an actor did or didn't do. And if I had to put a star rating on this, I would say, yeah, 2 stars. No higher than 2 stars because it didn't do anything original. Nothing in this came at me from a direction I wasn't expecting, and the little tidbits of things that they did differently than the 1978 film, they don't do very well, and it has plot holes. It has problems with the logic going on, and I'll get into some of that a little later on. But let's go with this 3-star review, December 2018. We've already jumped back to 1 year ago. Yet another Invasion of the Body Snatchers knockoff, this one starring Nicole Kidman as a pricey DC psychiatrist who becomes convinced that something is very, very wrong. Spooky husbands, creepy kids, zombie cops, they're all here and then some, popping up early on just like they're supposed to, and soon folks are dashing into traffic crying, "They're here, they're here." Kidman is enlisting the aid of pal Daniel Craig. Uh, Casino Royale, his first Bond pick, came out a year earlier. Okay, so I stand corrected. He was actually James Bond 1 year before this, but I don't think I saw this when it came out originally. I saw this film when it was already out on DVD a couple of years. So, yeah, that's where my confusion comes across. But yeah, he had Casino Royale he had done before this. Again, I'll repeat that he sounds and looks very different in this than he does in the James Bond films, in any of the Bond films. I don't know if that's bad or good, but he's very different in this. And I don't know if this was filmed before or after Casino Royale. Could have been either way, but he's very different in this. Let's move on. A 3-star review from July 2018. So apparently I was wrong. It's not Bond that determines whether or not you're a true Wachowski fan, it's this movie. Or it's not Bound that determines whether or not you're a true Wachowski film fan, it's this movie. But in my defense, not only were they uncredited writers on a re-edited version of a more talky cut, but I only found out when I was reading about my favorite directors on Wikipedia. The script shows signs of intelligence. There are a couple of good scenes and the performances are decent. And hey look, Body Snatchers fans, Veronica Cartwright returns from the 1978 adaptation. Yes, she does. Veronica Cartwright, right away I recognized that she was also in the 1978 version. She was one of the main characters that was eventually assimilated by the aliens. In fact, no, I think she might have been the last one in the film. Maybe she was the last character that had not been assimilated by the aliens. But either way, she popped out. I would recognize her right away from the 78 version. But she doesn't have a big role in this. She's just there to kind of give you that creepy vibe to say, hey, remember the 78 version? Well, also remember that that version was a little bit better than this one. It was far creepier, far more effective. Now, as far as the Wachowskis actually writing this script, I wasn't aware of that. I did take a look at the credits, just briefly glanced at them before I started this rotten review. I don't recall seeing the Wachowski name on there, but okay. Well, if they are involved in this, it's just another bad thing that they've created because it is certainly rotten. Nothing new happens here. In fact, right off the bat in this film, they kind of try to tie in the space shuttle as having something to do with how the alien spores came to Earth. This wasn't done in the other 2 films. It's not necessary, and it fails its own plot logic because they spend a lot of exposition at the beginning explaining to you that it's some kind of fungal spore that's come from outer space on the wreckage of the space shuttle, because the space shuttle, it re-entered the atmosphere similar to what happened to Columbia, and it broke apart and the debris was scattered all over the country. And it's very similar to the Columbia disaster, but they're saying that these alien spores piggybacked on the debris and they survived re-entry and etc. And right from that point, the film fails its own logic, because if these alien spores were capable of entering the Earth's atmosphere and they could withstand 1,000-degree temperatures and etc. They certainly didn't need the space shuttle to bring them to Earth. They could have ridden in on any kind of meteorite, or they could have just floated down themselves, been pulled into the gravity of Earth, I would think. So they just plugged in the space shuttle nonsense just to have something different about this, because it's not, it doesn't do anything with the plot. It just introduces another problem with the plot. So they should have just cut that space shuttle stuff out completely, because it also introduces another big problem I found with this film right away, which was that everything happened too fast. The space shuttle comes into, it breaks up in the Earth's atmosphere. People find the debris. The debris is slowly collected. This takes quite a while, and yet the outbreak of this alien infection, it happens incredibly fast. I mean, the first case is already shown in the movie. Less than 2 or 3 hours after the space shuttle broke up in Earth's atmosphere. That's a big problem, and that's why I say they should have just cut that shuttle business out completely. All it did was introduce problems, 2 or 3 problems with this plot, and that was something that just stuck out to me right at the beginning. This moved way too fast. That's why, you can say that this had the pacing of an action movie. Most of it did. And as a result, you don't really feel anything for the characters. You don't spend much time on their backstories. They're very shallow, very cardboard cutout. And they run around a lot and try to evade the alien conspiracy. But the whole time you just don't feel anything for them because you've just got this frantic pace, and they're just moving along through that pace, doing stuff. But on an emotional level, there's no connection with the audience, and that's why, another reason why I think the space shuttle part and the speed that they showed the outbreak occurring is just a big fail plot-wise. Big mistake. That's a screenplay problem. Nothing to do with the actors. Let's move down. 3 stars, June 29, 2018. I think the original 1956 version is the best because it set the bar for a memorable science fiction franchise, and because it's one of the best and defining sci-fi flicks of the 50s and even of the 20th century. I can kind of agree with that. Continuing, and while the remake is far inferior to the 1956 and 1978 films, it's not a horrible remake either. It's campy sci-fi fun, which does have its chilling moments, and just like the other films, will give you a sense of paranoia, and Nicole Kidman was a good choice for the film. I'm going to kind of disagree. There's nothing really campy about this. It's just completely serious. It's kind of like more of an action conspiracy thriller type movie. Very little on the alien other than seeing somebody kind of get the disgusting alien goo effect on their face and whatnot. It's mostly just kind of a conspiracy thriller, and a lot of the running time is just Nicole Kidman and her son and her boyfriend just running around through alleyways and in and out of buildings, trying to avoid people that are part of the infected, the alien conspiracy, so to speak. And it gets really dull to look at, and there's a lot of plot problems with things that happen. For example, at the end of this film, a helicopter is coming to rescue Nicole Kidman and her son. Now, this helicopter, it could have just landed in any intersection around this New York metropolitan area. It could have just landed, and she could have just gotten on the helicopter, and that would have been it. But no, the movie needed to pad out the runtime and make it exciting, or what the director thought would be exciting, and have some kind of mysterious reason why the helicopter couldn't just land anywhere. It had to land on top of a parking garage structure that had a designated helipad, just for the sake of having to have Nicole Kidman drive from point A to B and have all this chase stuff going on between point A and B. It was obvious what the movie was trying to do, and it was a plot hole on top of it, because this helicopter could have just, they even knew where Nicole Kidman was. They could have just landed next to her, and she gets on board, and boom, that's it. But no, it had to drag on and on and on, with her driving her car through the streets and all these alien-infected people just throwing themselves on the hood of the car and riding along on it as though that was going to stop her or something. and things bursting into flames and her car wrecking into things and into buildings, and that was supposed to be really exciting, but it wasn't. It was just like, it was one of those moments, one of those long drawn out action scenes that I felt my thumb moving towards the fast forward control, because I just wanted to fast forward through it, but I didn't. But I probably should have, because there wasn't anything to see there. On my list, I have a nice little list of problems as I kind of detected them. And yeah, the audience already knows everything that's going on about the alien conspiracy and where it's probably going to go. And the movie kind of plays out with Nicole Kidman taking a while to figure it out. And there's just nothing exciting here. We know what's happening. She figures it out pretty quick. Everybody else figures it out pretty quick. You move from point A to B to C. There's not really a plot twist of any kind in here, so it doesn't throw anything exciting at you. That's why it's just completely boring overall. There really isn't a point to this one. You know, yeah, these alien spores, like it's shown at one point in the movie, it's shown that this kid, this I don't know, he's like 9 or 10-year-old kid. He becomes infected with the alien spores, and it gives him some kind of super strength where he can like grab a large dog's head and kind of crush it. And okay, but then later in the movie, this alien strength doesn't come into play at all. Nobody else that's infected seems to have this alien strength. They seem to be just regular people that are like just inhabited by alien personalities now. So the movie kind of went with a super strength thing and then just kind of abandoned it or forgot about it completely in the rest of the movie. And that was kind of weird, because why put that in, showing that the spores give you some kind of super strength, and then nothing else in the movie ever brings that up again. Very kind of a script writing fail. Let's go with this 2-star review, March 17, 2018. Although it looks very nice and has an interesting premise, it's as formulaic as can be and does nothing at all to surprise you. The fragmented way the story is told is another bad decision, making it confusing at times, as it jumps back and forth between past and present with little to distinguish the two. To top it all off, there is an unfortunate lack of chemistry between the cast, and the characters they're playing are bland, to say the least. Basically, it fails in every regard to capture any real feeling of terror or suspense. Yes, it doesn't have terror or suspense. Nope. Didn't feel anything even slightly along those lines. Again, this is very predictable and dull. And this reviewer brought up some very good points. There is no chemistry between the main leads, even though they're supposed to be boyfriend and girlfriend and have this romance subplot. Doesn't feel real, feels completely cardboard. Also, there are some strange like flashbacks that I couldn't tell what was going on either. They kind of, for no reason, they put a couple of flashbacks in the middle of action scenes, and you don't really know if you're looking at the past or the present, and it doesn't really mean anything to the plot. It is confusing. I had that on my list too. I just kind of scratched my head wondering what was the point of that, because it's right in the middle of a couple of action scenes that they throw us into flashbacks, and the flashbacks don't do anything or have anything to do with anything, and it just confuses you. Yeah. And thanks for bringing that up. 2.5 stars, November 26, 2017. Not a bad remake, just not very good either. The first half was actually terrific. Pretty intense setup with nice chilling atmosphere and a political talking point I found to be interesting in one scene and gives some food for thought. Well, I'll stop right there. There is kind of a sidetrack on this to try to give some hints at a political message. I guess it's an anti-war message. That's the whole theme of this movie. At the beginning, they show, there's a lot of talk about the Iraq War and about Afghanistan. And then as people become infected by the alien spores, there's all these peace treaties and troops being removed from Afghanistan, and peace with North Korea, and all these things that are just fantasy peace scenarios where the whole world is basically in peace. And this is shown through newscasts that are on TVs in the background when the characters are being pursued around in various places. Yeah, so they're kind of saying that the alien spores are actually, in a good way, they're bringing peace to the earth, because once everybody's taken over by aliens, they just decide to all get along. Okay, and then at the end of the movie, After the aliens are defeated, spoiler, they're defeated. That is a departure from the 1978 film where there is no happy ending. But in this film, there's a happy ending. The aliens are defeated, and it's shown that conflicts are breaking out again, and people are, crime is back up, and all this stuff back to the way it was. And they're trying to give you the message that, yeah, humans are animals, and in fact, that's a line in the film from this German scientist or German or Russian ambassador, I believe it is. Yeah, it's weird. There's a Russian ambassador character early in the film that gives this long monologue about how humans are animalistic in nature and basically they're designed to be evil. And that's the theme of this movie. That's what you're left with. And it's very preachy. There's one scene at the beginning where this Russian ambassador goes on for a good several minutes of preaching to the choir around this dinner table about, humans being animals programmed, that they have to be evil by nature, etc. So yeah, this is a message type movie, but I'm going to say that a more effective message that this movie delivered in its running time was all the ad product placement. There was a whole scene in this movie where Nicole Kidman and her son go into hiding in a little drugstore, like it's like a little small Rite Aid or CVS or something. And the only reason they're there, you can tell, they're there for a long period of the running time. The only reason they're hiding inside of there is for all the product placements that you're going to see. You're going to see her drink out of 2-liter bottles, Pepsi, Mountain Dew. You're going to see her use various, off-the-shelf pain relievers. You're going to see bags of chips and Doritos and etc. And you're going to be seeing product placement for a good solid 10 minutes, if not more. And it's clear that that was deliberate, and maybe that one scene where Nicole Kidman's hiding in the pharmacy, it's as boring as hell. It could have been cut out, but nope, it had to be there because they were paying for a large segment of the movie with just that pharmacy scene. And it's pretty pathetic because it just takes you right out of the film when you know that you're just stuck in that pharmacy being bored for 10 minutes, only just so you can be bombarded with product placement. Pretty sad, and that scene alone is enough to drive this into rotten territory, even if nothing else was wrong with it. That was just shameless, and it was just completely pathetic. Let's move on. Half a star, July 31, 2017. I Want My Time Back. Yeah, that's what I was thinking in that pharmacy scene when I was watching Nicole Kidman swig out of Mountain Dew bottles. Where's my time? 2.5 stars, July 25, 2017. What a missed opportunity. I think actually it was just a big mistake. Just to remake another version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It wasn't going to work out well because everybody knows the story. It's been done so many times in different ways. There's probably more than 40 or 50 Hollywood movies out there of varying quality that, while they're not straight up rip-offs of this, they are very derivative one way or the other. So there's nothing surprising about any of this. You would have had to have made a 5-star blockbuster with Academy Award performances to actually give somebody something worth anything by doing this again, because it's just material that's been gone over so many times. It was almost guaranteed to fail. Almost guaranteed. 1 star, November 2nd, 2016. This is an awful movie and Kidman sucks as usual. No redeeming qualities here, and the fact that it is a remake of an excellent film means that the producer of this ripoff should go to prison. That's a little bit harsh. I don't know who the producer is. I don't care. This might have made profit. I don't know. Rotten Tomatoes says it made $15 million. I have a hard time believing it was made for less than that. So yeah, it probably lost money, at least domestically. But yeah, this was destined to fail. No question about it. I don't think Nicole Kidman sucks. I think she's been in some good movies. I think she works in a few types of movies. She doesn't work as an action star, but she didn't do anything wrong in this. It was just boring what they had her doing. Let's go back to my list. Yeah, helicopter, the contrived way the helicopter had to land at the end. Oh, and it's just very convenient for the story that Nicole Kidman's psychiatrist in Washington, D.C. happens to know all these well-connected and powerful characters. For example, she knows all these diplomats. She knows a lab worker at the same hospital she happens to work at, just happens to be plugged into the CDC at a high level and is also basically a genius. He's a genius lab tech. I don't know what he's doing working as a lab tech in this hospital, but he is like genius level and should have been, running the CDC. But just conveniently, he happens to work in the same building as Nicole Kidman does, so she can have access to what's going on in Washington, D.C., and etc., and get rescued at the end by this lab tech character. And what's weird is like he's a lab tech, but all of a sudden he's like, got the authority of Washington, D.C. to bring a rescue helicopter to Nicole Kidman. It's just very convenient. It's very convenient that everybody knows all these wealthy and connected people in D.C. Not impossible, not totally implausible scenario-wise, but just way too convenient to be believed in this film all at the same time. So let's move on. 3 stars, June 13, 2016. Second of 2 remakes of the classic sci-fi flick, The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This one less faithful to the original than the Donald Sutherland remake. Yeah, this one has like a bunch of elements that didn't need to be there. Didn't need to have the space shuttle connection. That just made it have more problems. It also didn't need the CDC connection with the genius lab tech co-worker at the hospital. It didn't really need that either. It just kind of derailed this into an action film. The original film from 1956 and from 1978, those weren't action films at all. They were straight up horror and suspense. This is like an action film that the action is very contrived and boring to watch. Again, you just want to fast forward through the action. 2.5 stars, April 5th, 2016. We're back 3 years, more than 3 years now. Occasionally succeeds in its paranoid atmosphere, but the fact is The Invasion is a dull and unnecessary remake, barely kept afloat by its compelling leads. Yeah, there's nothing new to see here. There are just derivative B movies out there over the years that did this better, that are called other various things. Yeah, 2 stars, February 22nd, 2016. Did you really need this good class of actors to make such a bad remake? No, no, there was no reason you needed Daniel Craig. There's no reason that you needed Nicole Kidman. They could have been replaced with anybody. The film would have been exactly the same. It didn't. The problem wasn't the actors or the casting. The problem was the damn script. It was just completely boring overall. 1.5 stars, December 2015. We are now almost exactly 4 years back in time from the date of this video. The only thing that kept me watching was Nicole Kidman's beauty. I know that sounds pathetic, but if she wasn't in it, I would have changed the channel. Okay, so Nicole Kidman fanboys, this is a Nicole Kidman movie, so I guess there's that positive thing for you. 3 stars, December 2015. This horror film adaptation of The Body Snatchers was full of fright, but lacked of any thematic themes and intelligence. I'll completely disagree. There was no frights in this whatsoever. Nothing about this was scary or suspenseful. You knew everything that was going to happen, and there wasn't even any gore in this. There was nothing about this that was scary. Theme. Oh, it had a theme. The theme, like I said, was to hammer home that humans are animals that are destined to be evil. It's programmed into them. That's your theme. It's actually stated in the movie more than once. So watch it and get your theme if you're into themes. 3 stars, October 2015. It may not be that intellectual or as psychological as it pretends to be, but it oozes with an eerie, sinister feel with just enough suspense and action to keep you watching to see how it ends. I thought Kidman was brilliant in this. I'm sorry, but I don't know what movie they were watching, but none of that is to be found here, so I disagree. 2.5 stars, September 2015. The Invasion. While this remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers has some more modern elements to it, and it does have some good moments, it never quite overcomes its flimsy plot. See. Yeah, you know what? The only thing I found a good part of this, a good element, and it was probably by accident, is there's a young child, like an Asian actor, who's, I don't know, maybe he's 6, 7, 8 years old, and he is one of the first people possessed by the aliens. And he has an encounter with Nicole Kidman where he basically tells her on board a train to just stop hiding, stop running, and just go to sleep already and get it over with. And he was a very creepy character, and I found him the most effective character, that young Asian kid, as an alien. He looked perfect, he acted perfect, he was creepy as hell. It's too bad everybody else in the movie was forgettable and lame and boring. He was very effective, and I'll say that the scenes in which he was there on the train, and later when he discovered that Nicole Kidman was faking that she had been infected later on, those were very effective, and he was creepy as hell. How come the whole cast couldn't have been that as effective? It's a shame, because I'm going to list him as the most effective part of this film. 2.5 stars, June 10th, 2015. The Invasion is a slickly produced movie. The editing can be a little too much at times, but for the most part, it is a swiftly moving vehicle. Yeah, literally, it's a swiftly moving vehicle. You get a lot of car chase and foot chase, and none of that's really exciting. It's been done better in TV shows. So there's a lot of just wasted footage of literally a lot of moving in vehicles. But let's continue. Sadly, as far as the story goes, there's much to be desired. This film's undoing is in the fact that the characters are flat and impossible to care about. As a result, moments that should feel thrilling or even terrifying feel dull. The film had potential, and there is plenty it could have and should have been, but the invasion is devoid of emotion. Yes, exactly. You just don't care or feel anything for these characters. It's like watching cardboard characters. 2 stars, February 26, 2015. Seeing as this is widely viewed as a complete train wreck of a movie, I was actually pretty pleasantly surprised. Yeah, it's probably not quite up to the standard of either of the original versions of this story, but they're not exactly Citizen Kane, and are they? So keep your knickers on. This is a pretty solid and enjoyable thriller, no more, no less. It's not a thriller, it tries, but as a conspiracy thriller, it's very boring. There's nothing unpredictable or surprising or shocking about it. So I also say 2 stars, because the value was there in the production. And I watched the whole thing despite being bored at several parts of it, but no, it's not solid, it's not enjoyable, it's just barely able to reach 2 stars. You're going to be disappointed, I guarantee you, not surprised. 2 stars, January 20, 2015, not English. Another that's not English, half a star, October 13, 2014. We're back in time over 5 years now. This is the first time I've started to rate review a film before it's over. Clearly not a great sign. The reason is that 45 minutes into this film about an alien infestation taking over human bodies, its forced plotting and generally abysmal scripting are too galling and annoying to redeem itself. Actions are pretty vapid as well. While an invasion film should be given some leeway and the motivations of the invading force don't have to make... Yeah, they're basically saying this thing is just totally boring. At 45 minutes in, they realized it was, and maybe they shut it off just so they could write this review. 2014, they're definitely watching it on, DirecTV or something. And I'll say that's where I saw this, because I didn't even see this when it was out on home DVD release. I sure as hell didn't see it in the theater. In fact, probably it didn't have much of a marketing budget, because I don't even remember knowing that this was out in the theaters, and so I count myself lucky on that one. 1 star, August 9th, 2014. You'd think that if you were going to remake a sci-fi classic, you'd do a better job. Yeah, like I said, you would know that the odds are against you going into this. Pretty much you're doomed unless you pull the rabbit out of the hat. And no, this was doomed. It lived up to the bad reputation of remakes, that's for sure. 1.5 stars, July 28, 2014. The Invasion is a dull remake of a classic masterpiece in the horror and science fiction genres alike. Full review at blah, blah, blah. That's enough. That's enough of a review, trust me, and I agree. It was just a bad, dull remake. Here we go. You got this... pathetic remake with 236,112 audience reviews. Now we go back to the 1978 film. 81%. You have only 35,000 reviews. So the 1978 version of this film has been mostly forgotten, but it is far superior to this. Far creepier. It even has Leonard Nimoy in a creepy role, by the way, for Star Trek fans. But nope, I'm sorry, we're stuck with this 2007 one. Let me finish off my list here and see what else I can find. Yeah, oh, the aliens, too obvious. The aliens aren't really trying to put too much effort into their stealth invasion of the world. Um, Instead of just kind of laying back low key and going about their regular lives, once people are infected, they actively like annoy the people they're around by trying to give them infected drinks so they can become infected with, uh, coffee, tea, or juice, or whatever they're trying to push on you at all times. And so it's kind of stupid and unnecessary. If they would have just waited long enough, everybody would have been infected. But instead, you've got like a husband and a wife, and the wife will be infected, and then the wife will spend all her waking hours just trying to bring drinks to the husband, even though the husband says he doesn't want anything to drink. She just keeps pushing drinks on him until the husband says, "Hey, this isn't my wife. There's something wrong with her," and starts to ask questions. And that was another real stupid point in the plot is that the aliens could have just chosen to act normal. They had all the memories and everything of the host, the original person, but nope, they went and screwed it up for themselves and had all their spouses and whatnot being suspicious about them. Why would they do that? Oh, I forgot. They did that so that the plot would work, because otherwise we couldn't have the story, right? We would have had, too much time going on there to get the alien invasion going. So yeah, it's just another really stupid plot hole in this, the way the aliens act to reveal themselves, to make everybody suspicious. So yeah, I mentioned the lab tech that just happened to have all the Washington D.C. connections. A little bit too convenient. Yeah, I mentioned the flashbacks. Yeah, checking my watch halfway into this at the 45-minute mark, like one reviewer said. He was thinking about writing his review, and I was checking the time. Halfway into this, I checked my time because I thought maybe, this movie was a long movie and it was up to the 2 hour mark, but nope, we were only 45 minutes in, and I was like, wow, that was my first clue that I was bored. Um, yeah, there was one scene, just a little nitpick. Nicole Kidman, she runs to her boyfriend's car that's outside because her boyfriend at that point had already been infected. But she runs and jumps into the car as though she knew for a fact that he had already left the car keys in it so she could just start it and take off with it. That's not the way things work. You don't go and try to steal somebody's car just assuming the keys are in it when they're chasing you. That's a real bad plan, and little stuff like that. There was a lot of it in the movie that kind of pulled me out of the plot because it was just a little too many weird plot problems like this. Very small, not the death of the movie, but just enough to, make me want to pull out my notepad and jot it down, which pulled me out of the film. So let's move on down my little list. Yeah, I mentioned the helicopter that just for no apparent reason can only land on a helipad, despite the Army being quite capable of landing it wherever the fuck they want to. But nope, it has to be on a helipad so that we can have this stupid vehicle chase with Nicole Kidman crashing into a bunch of stuff. Yeah, there's an end press conference. This doesn't just end with the aliens being defeated. You need this like press conference at the end that literally in an interview to a TV reporter wraps every single point in the plot up in a nice little bow for the audience, like just packages it up like a Christmas package and delivers it to you. Explains everything, it tries to actually explain plot holes that would have been there in the story, and it does it all in a little 45-second television interview at the very end of the film, and it was just too hokey and too on the nose, and it just should have been cut from the film. They should have just left some of the plot holes and just not had that stupid last scene, because it just felt completely stupid at the end, cringeworthy. Um, Yeah, and then there's the message. The message is don't forget your theme. Remember, don't forget to get your themes out of all these movies, popcorn lovers. The theme you need to get out of this is that the humans on Earth, are basically animals. They're programmed to be evil. They'll never change their evil ways. That's just what it is to be human. And for better or worse, that's your theme. Enjoy. And, 40% on the audience score, I think that's fair. 19% on the critics, I think that's fair. So I will see you again on another episode of Rotten Reviews.